Plenty, I believe. Pen prefers. Ricilla? The tall woman chuckled, her eyes sparkling with mischief as she glanced at her counterpart. Heh, and you were worried you wouldn't like her. The taller woman's voice was light, teasing. Hey! I just expressed concern. Nothing more, all right? Kalia crossed her arms, a hint of defensiveness creeping into her tone. You thought to be concerned about Pen? That's rich. The tall woman smirked, her laughter echoing softly in the cozy room. No one else really did, but my Kalia might be a bit untrusting, wouldn't you say? The tall woman raised an eyebrow, playfully challenging Kalia. I am not untrusting. Kalia's voice raised a pitch, her cheeks flushing slightly. And a bit grumpy too, the tall woman added, leaning closer with a grin. I am not grumpy, Kalia exclaimed, shaking her head in disbelief. Past her bedtime. I swear, you love doing this. Kalia huffed, rolling her eyes dramatically. I do. The tall woman's grin widened, a spark of amusement dancing in her eyes. If her face was a sunrise, Kalia's was a storm. Yet, beneath the playful torment, there was a warmth that signaled their long-standing friendship. Kalia's mock frown was undermined by a small smirk that crept onto her lips. Well, I am beat, so I'm headed up, but not because you said to. Kalia spoke as she poured herself a glass of whiskey, her movements deliberate as she savored the moment. I'm assuming you're going to. She pointed to Gareth, her expression shifting slightly to one of curiosity. I was going to, yes, speak to our guest if they were fine with a bit of conversation. The tall one looked down at Gareth, her demeanor shifting to one of gentle consideration. He absolutely would be, of course, Kalia said, her tone softening as she headed for the stairs, but turned back for a moment. You are why she pointed at her glass, her voice trailing off. Yes, I'm well aware, the tall woman replied with a playful grin. The two shared a momentary smile, a silent understanding passing between them, before Kalia turned back and disappeared up the steps. Maeve, I realize I never introduced myself. The grump is Kalia, the tall woman said, extending her hand with a warm smile. Gareth, a pleasure, he replied, taking her hand firmly. You said she was concerned about Pen, but I think those two might get along. What was the phrase? Swimmingly. He flashed a grin, genuinely intrigued by the dynamic. I'm inclined to agree with you. Though from what I've heard from a few of your fellow crew, Pen has made herself someone everyone would want to be friends with. That is to say, she performed a few downright heroic acts right out of the gate? Maeve leaned forward slightly, her curiosity piqued. She certainly has, yes. Gareth nodded, a hint of pride in his voice. Well, I hope you don't mind, but I do have a reason for speaking. If I'm up regardless and you're here anyway, I would be remiss if I didn't make use of the opportunity. Go on? Gareth replied, intrigued. Well, I am a bit of a botanist, and I don't often get the chance to talk firsthand with someone, more than someone in fact, so many people from so many different places. If you're not planning on sleeping soon, well, there's your first little bit of knowledge. My people don't sleep, Gareth said, his tone matter-of-fact. Your people, Mae's eyes widen in surprise. Wylans. We originate from a binary star system, though speaking of sleep, are you? Gareth looked at her curiously. Oh no, I suffer from insomnia. It's a condition that makes it difficult to fall asleep, so I'll be up for some time, she explained, her voice softening as she shared this personal detail. Really? Interesting. Well, if we're both awake, then by all means, ask away. Gareth smiled, leaning back slightly, ready to engage in a deeper conversation. My main interest is the plant life on your world, Maeve said, her enthusiasm evident. We've spread far and wide by now, but the native plant life on Walia is quite different from those spiky trees outside. The leaves of the plants you have about town seem a bit closer to what I'd consider normal, if only in shape. Size and color is another matter. Even you would consider the leaves on the island trees large, like massive fuzzy blankets, and only a few leaves per tree, Gareth explained, gesturing animatedly as he spoke. Oh my. You speak as though all the trees are the same, though. Is there not a lot of variety? Maeve asked, tilting her head in thought. I suppose not. Walia doesn't have much landmass above water, and there isn't a lot of varying climate, so I guess there might be less than what you'd consider normal. Underwater is a different matter, though, Gareth replied, a hint of pride in his voice. I wonder why they would evolve to be so large and with so few leaves, Maeve pondered aloud, her brows furrowing in thought. Maybe the atmosphere and gravity? It's certainly less dense and lighter than here. It's actually kind of amazing that you found a place so well suited for your plant life to take root. I'd love to see Waylon plant life without having to go home, Gareth said, his tone thoughtful. What do you mean? Your people have been traveling the stars far longer than us. Have you not made any other planets suitable for them? Maeve inquired, genuinely curious. You have? Gareth's eyes widened in surprise. Oh, we bring our ecosystems with us everywhere. Most everywhere, at least. If it has life of its own before we arrive, then we try to preserve it. But, for example, this place was a barren rock before colonization. The gravity was workable, and the distance to the sun was almost perfect, as well as radiation levels, but the atmosphere had to be fixed. It's taken a couple hundred years to make what you see now, and while it is Earth-like, it still takes some acclimatizing to, Maeve explained, her passion for her work shining through. That is really quite impressive. So, there are many colonized planets with Earth plant life? Gareth asked, leaning in, fascinated by her words. If it's remotely possible, we try. Flora, fauna, everything down to microbial life. Not that you could have anyone without the others. The system falls apart without every little piece, Maeve replied, her tone almost reverent. That must take a lot of work to keep everything in line, Gareth mused, envisioning the vast network of life they discussed. It's a titanic effort, but ironically enough, we do so little. Our part is mostly stewardship. The ecosystems themselves do the heavy lifting. My father and grandfather were both part of the group that started the terraforming process here. I followed in their footsteps, which takes me all across the planet, but I always make time to come back and relax regularly, especially for the festival, Maeve explained, a hint of nostalgia in her voice. I like that. It sounds lovely. There's something special about connecting with nature, Gareth replied, genuinely touched by her words. I consider myself quite lucky to live doing what I have a passion for doing, Maeve said, her voice warm and sincere. As they spoke, the sun began to rise higher, casting a warm glow over the room. Gareth and Maeve spent a while in back-and-forth conversation about a variety of topics, though Maeve always steered the conversation back to alien plant life. Gareth did his best to answer, and in any area he thought a more learned mind was needed, he mentioned Tunny Tea. The two of them could probably talk till the heat death of the universe. Eventually, lights started to filter in through the windows, illuminating the cozy room. Maeve seemed a bit embarrassed to have lost track of time for so long. Oh boy, I'm going to get an earful, she said, a hint of apprehension creeping into her voice. How do you mean? Gareth asked, curious. Well, any time I stay up the whole night, Kalia, Maeve began, only to be interrupted by a loud thumping noise from the stairs. Mavis Bernadette Greylock, Kalia thumped down the stairs, her voice echoing with mock authority. Ah, sh, Maeve started but quickly bit back her words. I'm impressed. You seem to have finally learned how to make the bed. So perfectly that it's almost like you never even got in bed to begin with. Oh wait, Kalia said, her voice dripping with playful sarcasm. Yes. No need for the theatrics, Maeve replied, her tone half-heartedly annoyed. Kalia crossed her arms, smirking as she looked at Maeve. Don't you and me, Maeve retorted, her eyes narrowing playfully. Kalia responded in an even more pointed tone, but walked past them into the kitchen. Breakfast? She called back, her voice cheerful. How about some eggs and leeks? And some toast? Maeve suggested, her stomach growling at the thought. All right, Kalia replied, a hint of enthusiasm in her tone. And for the eggs, Sunny. Sunny sighed up. Yes, I know, Kalia interrupted, a smile tugging at her lips. Thank you, Maeve answered with a trill, unable to hide her amusement. Soon, the house was filled with the delightful smell of grilled leeks and freshly brewed coffee. Gareth noted the unique scents, a blend of earthy and spicy notes wafting through the air. Gareth wasn't the only one to notice the smell, however. In a very short time, the door to their guest room burst open, and Penelope stumbled out. Everyone turned to look at her as she ambled into the kitchen, her eyes squinting blearily against the morning light. Her hair, still short but certainly longer than it had ever been before, was an utter mess. A cowlick had a coarse, dirty blonde tuft sticking almost directly up, while the rest came out at odd angles. She stood for a moment, rubbing the sleep from her eyes before speaking. "Coffee," she croaked, her voice raspy. "Sure thing," Kalia said, bemused at her state. "You sleep well?" "Looks like you did." "Better than I have in a while, that's for sure." Mercifully, Pen replied, her voice gaining strength as she woke up more. "Maeve has trouble sleeping too. Here's that coffee." "Food'll be up soon," Kalia said, handing Pen a parchment white mug that was warm to the touch. "Thank you," Pen said gratefully, taking the cup with both hands and relishing the warmth. She moved into the den, plopping down next to Gareth with enough force to actually send him up, if not quite into the air. "Whoa, whoa, careful please," Gareth said, chuckling nervously. "Oh, sorry there." Still waking up, Pen replied sheepishly, her cheeks tinged with embarrassment. "Then, please drink up." "I don't need you accidentally falling on top of me," Gareth joked, his eyes twinkling. "It would be a shame. Surviving all that just to get crushed to death on a couch," Pen retorted, a playful grin spreading across her face. "Indeed," Gareth agreed, enjoying the light-hearted banter. "Anyway, what is this festival I've been hearing about?" Pen asked, her curiosity piqued. "Oh yes, of course. It's an annual holiday of sorts. The town celebrates the food harvested at the peak of the season, community, and nature. There's a big gathering at the center of town. People bring food, but a few cooks among us have whole setups and cook right there. We eat, we sing, we dance, and we pass out and sleep in the next day," Kalia explained animatedly. "Sounds like a proper party," Pen said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Plenty of good stuff, if you know what I mean," Kalia added with a cheeky grin as she came around to them with small plates of grilled leeks and cooked eggs. "If this is Anidaya, you guys might have some ricilla around?" Pen said, her expression thoughtful. None has come in recently, but there are agave farms on the southern continent. They make the stuff. You could pop down before you head off planet?" Kalia suggested, her tone encouraging. "Sure," Pen replied, her mind racing with possibilities. Gareth couldn't help but notice a flicker of something in Pen's expression when she spoke, a brief moment of hesitation as her eyes darted away. "What was that?" "Anyway," Pen moved on quickly, "I kinda want to take a look at the ship, check my stuff, so I'm gonna go find Deeg or Tunny T and get them to show me the way." "I can come with if you want," Gareth offered, eager to assist. "No need. Stay here and enjoy yourself." "I'm just making sure nothing got damaged," Pen replied, waving him off as she stood up. "All right, maybe Maeve here can show me around town," Gareth suggested, glancing at Maeve with a smile. Oh, I have to show you the beehives, Maeve exclaimed, her excitement bubbling over. Pen chuckled but paused as she got up. She set her plate down and looked at Gareth. I'll be back. Gotcha. He nodded, feeling a strange mix of anticipation and curiosity about their growing bond. Pen thanked their hosts, put her hair up with a hair tie, and made her way outside. She found Deeg and Tunny T sitting with a few other crew members. Tunny T was nigh overwhelmed with all the research possibilities, so Deeg gave her directions to the ship. Crew members were coming back and forth, so she didn't have trouble finding the way. A short walk brought her to a rough sight. The ship certainly could have suffered worse. The left side thrusters took the brunt of the impact with the ground and were fairly mangled. The hull, however, seemed to have weathered the crash undamaged, save for the clear explosive marks at the back. The ramp was down, if not properly connected to the side where the explosive had sat, and a few crew members walked about checking things and keeping them in order. As Pen walked up the ramp, it creaked but held firm. The ship sat at only a slight tilt, a testament to its resilience. She made her way to her room, anticipation bubbling within her as she stepped inside, ready to assess the state of her belongings and her thoughts.